afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining in for this virtual event. Great honor and pleasure to be presenting this uh, unveiling of this book event. And firstly, I would like to thank Mr. S.K. Hota for agreeing to be the guest of honor for this and all the other senior panelists and dignitaries which are there for this event. Lastly, I would like to thank Mr. Ashok Bilal, sir, for who's been a continuous mentor and a support and been a curator of this book as well. Now, I would request Mr. R. Venkatraman, who's the co-promoter of IFL Group and managing director of IFL Finance.
Thank you, Monu, for your kind words, and good afternoon, friends. A very warm welcome to all of you learned delegates for the electronic launch of Building Green, IFL Home Loans Guide to Sustainable and Affordable Housing. This handbook provides insights on design and construction so that developers can obtain a green rating. And not only developers, but we believe that this handbook is an extremely useful tool for all participants in the ecosystem, from architects to engineers to homeowners. Last but not the least, I want to commend the IFL team, especially Monu Ratra, who's our CEO, and his team, Ajay Jaiswal, Amor Kool, Madhavi Gupta, and Vedant Sharma, for their untiring efforts to give life to this concept. But for the untiring efforts, this book wouldn't have seen light of the day. Thank you once again for joining us today.
Today also, if you go to buy a fridge or a air conditioner, then you always look for whether it is 3-star, 4-star, what level it has got. How it came about? It came about because there was awareness. People do understand that if I am going for a 4-star or 5-star air conditioner or a fridge, then energy consumption will be less and I will be saving so much. So similarly, I think that situation has to come in the green dwelling unit sector. And IFL has taken upon itself to play its part. I'm really happy about and I do appreciate. And particularly for today's this book, Building Green, the IFL Home Loans Guide to Sustainable Affordable Housing, curated by noted sustainable architect Dr. Lal. I think it's a really made an initiative, and I do appreciate and I applaud their efforts put in by Monu and the team. I consider that creation of stock and increasing home ownership, this goes hand in hand. The self-construction, certainly self-construction continues to play a great role, but when it comes to self-construction, most of those self-constructions are in tier 2, tier 3 cities or in smaller locations where the houses by and large are green. One thing is Government of India in the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana also, apart from the CLSS where the housing finance companies and lenders are involved, in the other 3 verticals, they are looking into it that by and large, the houses are delivered green. I would call upon all the financiers, whether it is HFCs, the small finance banks, the banks who are delivering to the bottom of the pyramid, to the economically weaker section and LIG segment in particular, to encourage individual home loans for which are green certified.
Vision has to be to mainstream sustainable housing, and I would define sustainable housing as green affordable housing. I think the word affordable housing, the appellation affordable housing, green affordable housing, has to be changed to sustainable housing, and that should be the government policy also, I feel. We need to create in India a sustainable housing coalition or a sustainable housing forum, whatever you may call it. May not be a legal entity because there are difficulties in creating legal entities and it takes a lot of time. And we need to very importantly, if I may take the liberty, because I am no longer have any responsibility, to put NHB in the center. since I'm not responsible, I can easily make the suggestion that NHB should actually be in the center of this coalition, where apart from playing the role of its apex financial institution, it has to be more development oriented in order to bring all stakeholders.
Came in force in European Union very recently, just about 6 months ago, and they'll become applicable on 1st January 2022. So what everybody is saying will become relevant only if the regulations are in place. So I think there are a lot of money and a lot of support. The intent is there, and a lot of investment can flow to private sector in case they really do something which is green and sustainable. But what we need today is taxonomy regulations. EU has at least made an initiative. Whether India can adopt the same or the context is different here, and we need to do something different. That is what maybe experts here have to take initiative and get that in place. Because the moment we get that in place, it'll become easier for us to bring our intent into like a real life or make them fructify.
To the Paris Accord, and our climate change strategy is based on 3 building blocks: net zero by 2050, which is investing for a net zero world; just transition, supporting just transition to a net zero economy by keeping the creation of decent jobs and skill development at the forefront of this change; adaptation and resilience of sectors, communities, businesses, trading. Putting these 3 blocks, what we try to do is to aim to support our markets to transition to a prosperous, low carbon and climate resilient economies. We are moving into the green building concept. We have to move towards the edge. And if the buildings are edge certified, at least there is a mark, there's a stamp of quality and endorsement that this has happened in a credible way. And institutions like CDC can work. We have done this, though in a smaller way, but institutions like CDC can work with IIFL and other home loan developers, and through these entities with the ultimate developers to move towards this direction.
Of our society, our economy, our ecosystem is a complex thing, with the built environment being at the center of solutions, the nature of solutions. Mitigation is the first and most important agenda item, I'm going to say, because of the extent to which buildings consume energy in our overall system and are consuming more and more energy and damaging our prospects of getting off the fossil fuel energy system, which has unfortunately created the problem. One of the things that we've been doing in the last few years has been to create a green finance market, which is what you talk about and what some of the other speakers have talked about. We now have about $1.1 trillion US of green bonds outstanding in the world to appliance labeling schemes. I need to be able to walk up to a house in Bangalore and be able to see a stamp on the front with a guide to whether it's red or green on the labeling scheme, in the same way as I expect nowadays to see that in a fridge. And I think that's a reasonable thing. Now, of course, the Indian Green Building Council is a key player in doing this, and we hope to see an expansion of their work in this area.
In terms of a green housing bond which will also help raise substantial amount of finance in the market, and you also should get that at a cheaper cost there. And I would also give a complete tax break on that. It should be a tax-free component coming over there. It'll be a fantastic opportunity where the cost of money for the housing financing institutions would be very, very low. For the affordable home finance now, or sustainable housing market, whichever word you want to do that. The second major component on which I thought will indicate is the way in which the housing market already gets into the both for the capex as well as the opex.
Do you think that we need to show up?
Yeah, I think we just need to show it to everybody that, okay, we have a MOU signed, and we hope to work together for this.
Gaps in terms of the context. I think from my perspective, or from the private sector side of Asian Development Bank, one of the key missing ingredients is really the lack of leadership, more leadership, replicating, scaling the leadership and the vision on the part of the actors who can implement on the ground, to build with a more mainstream vision, that if the housing deficits that need to be met, the construction that needs to happen in India, 70% of which we know still needs to happen by 2030 to meet some of the deficits in buildings, let alone the housing deficit in the affordable segments, economically weak, low income groups. There needs to be more vision and coordination on the part of all of the stakeholders to make that happen with green as a mainstream vision. On the micro level, and again, speaking mainly from the private sector perspective, what we need to do is find more IAFLs who have the vision to support this green, affordable construction.
Monu, I think there are two major changes. One, that delivery of service land to the markets. I think that really needs to be expedited if the cities have to meet with the housing demand. And what is happening is typically the service land delivery to the housing market, it varies from city to city, but it is at a lower pace. So that's one of the key area of focus that needs to be there. Second area of focus is this entire process for the developer or for the supply mechanism in converting land to build space. I think that itself, with the concerted efforts of the government of India in the last 5 years, there has been a marked increase or a marked improvement in the transaction processes in converting land to build space. And that is also reflecting in the ease of doing business records of the government of India, especially in securing construction permits. But again, there in the overall ecosystem, I think still a lot more ground needs to be covered.
Is that the town planning policies and policies that determine the availability and utilization of land and manage the land markets in a manner that it is indeed at all affordable for people or households with a monthly income of less than 20,000 rupees to be part of a legitimate part of urban development. The developers have won the negotiation. They've just called it affordable housing, got some benefits from planning regulations, and actually are serving only the middle class. They're not meeting the need where it exists. So there's a big shortfall on the ground on urban planning and regulation of land markets.
What shall be those sectors that really need taxonomic attention in the right to go ahead with, And I have to say that the building sector is a strong contender. Talking about the criteria that is going to be important in selection of those sectors. And that is about, the economic impact, contribution to GDP, the extent of jobs that can get created, the climate impact, the mitigation impact, the emission impact. All of those are the metrics by which we will be looking at some of the initial sectors to work on. In the ecosystem, there is a movement towards more regulation. Now, there's definitely that sense within the regulatory ecosystem that it doesn't have to be a heavy regulation. It has to be a nudge, So that even that nudge, that direction of travel is being set by the Ministry of Finance. When it comes to sector level discussions, I think a lot more expert voices and financial sector voices, no doubt, a lot more expert voices will be the ones that will be invited to actually guide this process forward.
Thank you so much. I think if we sum up the panel 2 discussions, so Susan spoke about leadership in sustainability, and there's a convergence and the lead to be taken by HFCs so that there can be more such stakeholders end to end to make it happen. Sejal spoke about the policy alignment, and Ashok Lal sir talked about the 3 disjuncts which exist. Again, it's on the policy side of it, and which the developer also need to be more sensitive of sorts. and Neha spoke about that we are on the journey of the Indian taxonomy. So thank you so much, panelists, and for taking out time for this. It was great.
The role of this book, when we were brought on board, was to say, how do you say all these things about green construction in a manner that the builder and the prospective buyer can understand that this is doable? How do you say it? And how do you put it in a way that they also value the purposes for which this is being done? So that was the challenge that was thrown at us. So it's really a communications tool which goes through systematically by first explaining the context within which this green buildings movement is taking on, what the role of the home buyer and the developer would be, but very simple language.
Thank you so much. I mean, it was such a wonderful, educative, enriching, and enlightening session. I take this opportunity to first thank Mr. Hota, who has been like a rock behind us. I take this opportunity to thank Mr. Sridhar, who's our chairman and obviously has been, again, the guiding light for us. Also, Srinivasan from CDC, I think he has already left the call, but of course, CDC has been very supportive and ESG conscious organization. Other than that, thanks for joining all the way from Australia, Mr. Suresh, and then three wonderful ladies who had the second panel, Suzanne, Neha, and Sejal, and also Mr. Lal. All this has been possible because we have such a renowned architect and such a wonderful person like Mr. Lal. I think the task ahead is, one, to create awareness, two, to support consultation and research projects, three, to build capacity by upskilling and handholding the developers, and four, we have to do the research and development in what Mr. Lal said, the building blocks or the sustainable construction material as well.